Lucky Boys Podcast.
Humble beginnings. You kind of get these instincts, and you see a lot of
and
these
not
characters.
Only that, you didn't get to survive in the streets not knowing to have these spider senses.
Yes. So my dad's like, watch out for him.
Sense.
Watch out for him. He goes, in the front cover, he's going to show you so pretty. I'm a nice guy. I'm harmless. I could never harm you, not even a fly. My dad says, inside, he could kill everyone.
Nobody can make it that hard, that
use
big.
everyone till there's nothing left. He's like, you watch out, son. He goes, people like that. He goes, those are the more dangerous one than the one you see with tattoo. Because they show you who they are when you see, what to expect. But someone like that, they lie all the time. Lie. The way they look is lie. Inside. Cold.
There's always a hidden agenda because all they care about is making money.
That's it.
And if he does not use some of his wealth to put it back into the community,
he doesn't.
So that tells me,
he doesn't.
He's, this is the new neo-capitalist of just the Trump thing.
You're seeing more and more of those characters come out. So.
I had no choice. I used to work with them because I used to, be the accounts when I was, working at Sprint, and I had to. When they pay for these things, I just spent $10 million on this network. I need this shit yesterday. And, these are the gorillas with the $10,000, custom-made suits.
Yeah.
They'll come to you and they're going to say, well, let's see how you're going to handle this.
That's another thing.
And it's not a matter of, no matter how much you want to, and I know myself, somehow, whatever the role I have chosen, regardless of fate or whatever you want to call it, there's no such thing as a coincidence. Shit happens to me. Whatever the reason may be, somebody will come into my life and just do things, and the scenario is like, what the fuck is this thing for? Another fucking test.
And do you believe that that's God intervening?
You know what?
Are you religious?
As a Christian, I believe there is some spiritual type of entity. I am a Christian. I'm also a Buddhist. I also believe in karma, and I try to, not to fuck things up because I don't want to leave that to my daughter, because whatever happens, I now have to contemplate as, shit that's going to happen. My daughter will be collateral damage.
Adam and Eve, for example, they bit the apple, so every human being born after that originated from this, you get original sin.
Right.
And because of that, you need to be baptized out. Like, where kids are born into a world of shit because of the bad karma that they had gets passed down. So even in death, their bloodline will continue to be cursed because of something they did.
Yeah.
And then it's up to that new generation. I believe that they can break that generational
You have
curse.
to try to break the cycle.
It's an uphill fight.
It is.
Right? It's an uphill fight because there's just so much shit that they dump on you.
And a lot of times I say to myself, everything that was taught to me and everything that I have learned, the moment my daughter was born, I had to unlearn myself to reteach my daughter not how to learn things the way I was taught. So I have to, literally reevaluate how I was raised, the good things, the bad things that happened to me.
When you're talking about you had to adjust and update, I think a big part of it, even to this day, we were raised with a lot of anger, right? As a shortcut, right? They would just get angry. Oh, why don't you just do this? Instead of teaching us how to properly do something through love, I felt like they were very short on kids. Like, you should just know this. You should just do this already, without that education background or the support or the resources given. It just felt like they wanted you to do this so bad and be successful so bad, but they didn't have the proper steps and the guidance to give you the best chances of succeeding.
And not only that, because the fact that, when you have parents that are not, I guess, highly educated, they're not dumb. I mean, they did, my mom was educated to a level when she was in China that, well-read. But there are still things that in life that, she's not exactly what they will call, Harvard Ivy graduated level. But like my dad himself, he was, well-read in his own rights. His, Chinese literacy, his philosophies and his wisdom is all done. But during the time when he was here struggling, they all know exactly what we have to do. We just want to make sure that our children don't eat the bitter. They want to just say, we are eating our bitter, so our children don't have to. But I also feel personally, we need to, and even for my daughter, to sample what eating bitter is, to understand that what we have to go through. And giving these kids a pass these days, certain entitlements that kids are getting. I want this. Why can't I get an iPhone? Why can't I be this? And they get angry because they're, because of peer pressure. They're angry because of what social media is showing them. So therefore, our children right now, the certain entitlement, they get angry because, well, I'm sorry, we just can't afford it. They don't understand that. There's, that generation disparity where, yes, eat the bitter.
Here's the thing. If I don't provide a cell phone or something that all of their friends have, I'm really trying to teach them restraint. That's one. Two, you don't need to be a follower. You don't need to have something just because someone else has it. I want you to truly want something because you want it. I don't want you to feel like you need to obtain something because everyone else has it and all of a sudden you feel like you need to have it. Because if you live by that code, number one, that's not going to help you when you're older in terms of happiness. Your happiness will be predicated on what you have obtained based on your surroundings, your environment. And I don't want that. I want your happiness to be on you, your independence. I want you to maintain that. And third, if we're talking about cell phone technologies in particular, they're young. I want them to be a kid for as long as possible, not their face glued to a cell phone all the time. So my daughter, she's totally cool with it, by the way. She understands. Some of her classmates have an iWatch, right, where it's cellular and everything. She told me that. She goes, "It's fine, Dad. I don't want one anyway. They're always on it. And they're kind of boring, to tell you the truth." I was like, "Whoa!" And my daughter's 7, right?
And that's
and she's
very
totally cool.
wise.
Whenever you want to talk to your friends, you let me know. So she lets me know, and then we'll get on a FaceTime call. We'll get the iPad going, and she'll get on a FaceTime call with her friends, and she's happy with that.
And by the way, that's on you, because when my daughter was growing up, I came from the technology world when everything just happened. She didn't get a cell phone until she was 16.
Whoa.
And
16?
I worked in the IT and the telecom field when I guess the first computer was like $5,000 with less than 50 megabytes.
The Pentiums.
Oh my gosh, I remember that.
That weigh a ton?
It was like, Windows, and she had access to all of that, She was privileged to digital technology because of my work. But I didn't give her a cell phone until she was 16 because it was it 16? A little bit late. This was during 9/11 because they had no choice. The phone system was down, and then they provided us with a cell phone. So I gave her the cell phone for emergencies only. But she was exposed to technology, but at the same time, I've also tried to explain to her what this technology is going to do, or for you, the goods and the bads. And today it is, unfortunately, because of the access to it. And, to answer to what you have, when I work with some of the parents with children that are with ACS cases, the kids that they learn right now, and it says, if I don't get the iPhone, I will bang my head and I'm going to go back to my teacher and say, you hit me.
Stop playing.
No, this is a quote unquote, one of my fathers.
Is that a cultural thing? Like, what race was a kid?
I work in the Bronx and in Harlem. I'm going to leave it as black and brown.
And they threaten to frame their parents?
Yes. Because they want the iPhone, or they couldn't.
It's crazy.
And that was this is an actual case on my caseload where the father went to jail because, when you're in certain communities, they literally criminalize the poor. So when the school, find basically anytime when there's any allegations of child abuse, if you are black and brown or even Asians, I've had my experience with that one time when my daughter was in elementary school. Because they know, they all get around in the classrooms. They all like strategize.
Yo, hold on.
It's
Are you
scary.
serious? I've heard comedians make bits about this.
No, they didn't get the materials out of nowhere. This is
where kids actually
case
harm themselves and then frame the parents.
They'll just go and bang their head or just hurt drop the show, and they'll just go back and tell the teachers, my dad hurt me.
These are really they think about these things, because back then I used to be a nuisance to my parents, but I never thought I'll frame my parents to get what I want.
I sat on the 2 train with my colleague, and we heard 2 ACS caseworkers and how to strategize just to sabotage the case because the father was winning. This was on the 2 train, me coming out of work.
But was the father right?
It didn't matter, because the fact that, the program that I was in, whether they were right or not, a lot of times because of certain agendas with, how families are fighting custody battles, using children as leverage and all of that.
Was there an incentive for ACS to go that route?
Keeping the case open. It's pretty much like...
Wait, what is ACS for those that don't
Administration to Children's Services.
Okay.
So, this also go into as far as today's kids, how certain cultures and how certain, economic level and how they're dealt. And I've seen it even with Chinese kids, because at one time there was a case where the kid lied because this individual wanted something and the parents couldn't get it. So, this child went back to the school and fabricated a story, and the person was basically harassed for a long time and also threatened because a lot of times if you're in certain community, the moment anytime that ACS is involved with the Child Protective Services, you're automatically, you will be arrested.
I would have to presume that it's like a certain age range that's usually the
children, the youth. Yeah. This is the transition between the elementary school anywhere between from 5th grade, because 6th grade. It used to be elementary school was up to 6th grade, 10 years old, and then it goes into the middle school and then high school. So right during transition, before they leave, because elementary school now ends at 5th grade. I'm not sure about your state in Jersey,
so
but in New York City,
they're getting 10 to 14 years old.
So during this particular age range for the youth, this is when they go out there and
wouldn't they separate the parents from the kid?
Yes, they do.
So what happens in those cases? Are the kids like, yo, I was just playing?
Too late. Because now the lawyers...
But there were cases where the kids go, I'm just no, don't take my mom and dad away.
Yeah, it's too late.
I just wanted a phone.
Wait. The kid, says that this is a lie, and that is already too late for...
It's too late.
The process already started?
Because now ACS will provide that child a lawyer, a case of activated. They're going to say, well, everything will be done as soon as fact-finding that we know that these incidents are non-founded. In the meantime, this child will be placed under foster care or kinship care until fact-finding. And parents will get arrested. This is family court. I'm not even talking about criminal court. Mm-hmm. And I have friends and colleagues that I work with criminal court system in the Bronx and also in Manhattan, because some of the fathers I work with, they were referred to me by the Manhattan and the Bronx criminal court because of allegations of domestic issues. And any time when it has to do with domestic, whether it's conflict or violence, the criminal case also gets involved along with the family. So the moment that any allegation that comes about of anything that was harm, and the term will be child endangerment, their parents will be either arrested, put in holding, depending if you have bail or whatever, until further notice. And sometimes the children will be either in the foster care system or in family kinship care. So at one time, I think there was an incident that a friend of mine was dealing with child abuse. I think it was because of this over-argument, and this child was given to a foster care family home in the Bronx. Apparently, there was no other kinship care or foster care for this child that could have been, at least culture sensitive to a Chinese family. And they were fighting. And I didn't get to the detail of the case, but somehow, because of what happened to the father and the mother, the Chinese child ended up, in Bronx with a Jewish family, where there was certain things that we were, my friend was advocating for to make sure that this child was getting all the right services.
But was that child legitimately abused?
See, you also have to remember the definition of abuse in context of how
in the way we.
So here's what happens.
Would think, or most people would like actually getting hit.
If I'm in the Bronx, or if I'm in the community, and say, well, I'll call the police, and the woman would say, he put my hands on me. The definition of that term, if you're in a black and brown or even in an ethnic community, if you put my hands on you, that is their definition, is this person physically abused. But a lot of times, if you have a very, very expensive lawyer, that you can say, well, that can mean just about anything. Mm-hmm. So, and if the child says, yes, mom hurt me, or my mom hit me or spanked me, that's considered assault, even though corporal punishment is not considered illegal. But how they wanted to deal with the case, they had, the ACS or CPS, which is Child Protective Services, they can determine, how to use whatever methods or whatever their decision to determine whether this was or not.
So how long is the punishment usually for? Like, they take away your kid for what, a year, or
depends on the case. Depends on
for that kid that ended up with a Jewish family. It
lasted for a long time, more than a year. I don't have the detail to it right now, but you can Google in the news. I'll leave that off the side for this for now, but I'll let you know the information out of this, the interview. But the person that was advocating for, just to let you know, that was Colin Chan. He was advocating for this child. There was a case that was
advocating for this child for what?
Basically to make sure that she gets the services and culturally competent and culturally appropriate services for this, for the child that was.
But she's a different case. I mean, it sounds like she was actually dealing with some issues at home.
But
not,
and the thing is,
we were talking about like cell phone technology being restricted.
But you also had to remember the fact that, this also goes through the same thing as far as how the child, still with the cell phone tech, how they go about seeing it through the school system, and even with early the conversation that led to that was how the kids in school these days during that particular age range and how they talk to teachers, systems and mandated reporting, the fact that how also Chinese Asian parents discipline our children, that can lead into that situation. So I also want people to be aware of the fact that, yes, culturally, it was interesting because a lot of my fathers that I didn't work with, they said, I grew up, back in Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, they made me kneel on rice.
My second grade teacher made me kneel on rice.
Was this a Catholic?
With books in my hands.
And all of that. So that right there, if you do that to your child now as a form of discipline, I'm going to use the word discipline and not punishment, yes, that will get your ass into holding for 24 hours and possibly in jail a little bit longer if you don't have proper legal representation.
Okay, how about something more tame, like holding a book above your head? Is that considered corporate punishment?
Legally, if you are somebody with a good lawyer, the definition is dosage, right? I can spank. How hard and how angry that day, and how many times have you spanked? That determines the abuse. So if you don't have, how do you articulate? If you're somebody that's not educated enough, your mind, I don't know, like, yeah, I hit my daughter, and really, and then of course your ACS lawyer for the child, they're gonna dig into that, knowing that, oh shit, this guy, he's not that educated. Let's go in there and find out exactly how bad did you. Is
that a legitimate investigation, or is that more prejudice?
If you make the kid hold it for 2 hours,
yeah,
you're going to jail. Because I can't even, I can't even hold a book now for 15, 10 minutes. I mean, let's face it, for somebody that's not physically fit, depending on, and by the way, what size book? Or what, 2 phone, or the dosage is what people are looking for. Yes, I spanked my child. What did you spank?
That was a very common discipline method for Asian.
But you also have to remember that's for common.
And it's common for, I don't know about this day and probably not, but back in the day in Catholic school, you get like,
I got yardstick. I got spanked.
We got slapped, yardstick.
Yes.
We had to put our hands back in the air for over an hour. We'd be dropping when they're not looking.
Get whacked.
And then we have to put our hands back up when they are looking.
And now that causes emotional trauma. Because if you do it in front of your class, you just humiliated that child.
See,
there's, because a lot of things they can lay into the legal language.
Do you consider that abuse?
And see, I have to look at each and every one of these on a case by case, because you can't have a cookie cutter for each and every family that you have to deal with it. There will be a time when a person could be calm and collect, and there will be a day you come back, you had a rough day, and you're going to carry that emotional anger. And I had that happen because I actually teach parenting class, that you come back angry and your child never had that experience because you always come back happy with your kid, and the kid just want to run to your leg and grab you and give you a hug. And the first thing you do, that emotion transferred over, and the first thing you do is just grab that kid and get out of my way. And you realize it's too late, because when you have that emotion that is still in you, it'll still bleed to it. And then, normally your kid will be perfectly normal just to run up to you and jump on you. But the moment, at that very moment when that happens with your child, that in that frame of mind, that was an aggression from another person. The first thing you're going to do, you're going to go and rage. Your eyeballs bulges out. It's like, what are you doing? And you knock. And the only time that'll stop you is when you see the water that comes out of your kid's eyes. Because kids,
that's trauma. That's trauma.
I know, but a parent that'll do that.
But see, the thing is, when you just get, issues. When you just get all of a sudden, I don't know, you got fired, or you lost your account, or somebody did something really, and you did not decompress. And that's the situation a lot of time when parents come home. If there's not a decompressed face, especially when you have young children that don't expect you to be in that emotional state of mind, that right there, that incident.
But to grab and physically assault your child just
No, it's not assault. It's just that, it's like, get away from me, because you're still in that emotion.
You kind of don't know.
That's understandable.
And it happens.
But then child services will try to separate you from...
Because if that child bruises and goes to school.
But that's the thing. If you're in that state and you, there's no excuse for bruising your child like that. Even if you're...
They don't care. It's an accident.
No, but I think that's abuse stuff. If you're hitting your kid to the point of bruising... Right,
no, it could be an accident.
And that kid didn't do anything wrong. It's just you're having a shitty day, so you want to put your shit on someone else that's smaller than you.
What I'm saying is that you didn't hit him. You just kind of grab and pull your kid away.
But you still bruised them.
It's a different situation.
How hard you grabbing your kids with them eagle claws? You know what I'm saying? You don't grab a kid like that. No matter how angry you are.
You have no idea if you have anger issues.
You're a grown ass adult male. That's crazy.
You have to understand.
Then that person needs to check themselves.
Yeah.
That person needs to go through therapy. And maybe they need some time apart from their children so that they won't ever do that again.
There are situations.
Because you do that once, you may feel bad later on when you decompress, but if you never learn how to control your anger, you're going to do that twice, 3 times, and then eventually you're going to think it's normal. It's going to become normalized.
And there will be times that it only takes that one because I remember when
it takes a second to lose trust.
My daughter fell out of a chair and she bruised her shoulder, so we took her to the doctor. The only thing that doctor was looking for was to see if her injuries was accident. And he was asking me because at the time, that particular area where I was staying,
right,
he asked every single question that was leading to, did I
cause it?
Right. That's good. That's great that the hospital does it.
But you also have to remember there are certain people, like that grown ass.
Did they wait for you to get out of the room?
No, they had to ask me. They literally, when he checked all the her bruises, because it was, and it's like, so what did you do? How did that happen? But if you happen to be in certain demographics, yo man, why you accuse me? And there are people that don't like to be accused of something that they didn't do.
They have to ask questions, so they don't know you.
And it's it's hard for individuals that don't like to be asked those uncomfortable questions. I remember going into Newport. I think I mentioned it one time. Going into a Newport Mall when my daughter was younger, when she had in a sundress, her color.
People were asking you.
It was a police officer at the New Jersey Mall, and this guy was basically, because my hair was longer, I had my bike outfit and whatever, and my daughter, as she looks more Caucasian, she was in a sundress and her hair was, when I walked down the mall, and basically they approached me thinking that was not my daughter. Mm-hmm. What am I doing with this? So I had to anticipate the answers that, and I already knew. So when all that happened, everything got de-escalated. But I do know when I first saw it, the officers approached me. Both of them basically unsnapped the button on the sidearm holster. I saw everything that was like the scenario, what was about to happen if I was actually the child, because obviously because of the physical appearance, I look nothing like my daughter.
Did they come up to you respectfully?
Respectfully.
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, if you're saying they went
if it's
for
to protect children,
no, basically they went, and the first thing they went afterwards, and they start asking, and then
I love that they're doing their jobs. Yeah. From the doctor, asking your daughter those questions.
That's a good mentality.
And
but
the police officers, because they were respectful. It's not like they straight up disrespected you. They wanted to make sure first. Because
how do you think
they're trying to protect the
child? If you're in Chinatown, or if you're in the Harlem, or if you're the hub in the Bronx, how do you think those men would react?
I think it depends. I think it depends on every individual person.
Exactly.
If that person feels like they're being disrespected, if someone's coming at them too aggressively, then they might have a negative reaction to that. If that person's coming up to them respectfully and let's say they have a bad experience with the police officer in the past, and they don't trust them,
and those are the ones.
Then they may have a serious reaction to that.
Because I saw their face, the emotions on their face first. Because a lot of times you have to remember, you're a parent first before you wear the uniform, so you know exactly what a child predator or whatever you want to call it is capable of doing. So when the first thing they see a picture that's not right, they're going to go into that.
Because what if their headline reads, police officers saw something that was strange, that didn't quite fit. It looked something that was kind of unusual, and they find out that this guy was actually kidnapping this girl, right? And they say they just saved a little girl's life instead of worrying about coming up someone and just making sure everything's okay respectfully and letting you go on your way. They could have been like, if I was a police officer and I let someone go, next thing there's a headline, a girl's been kidnapped. She was at this mall. And I was like, shit, I saw it. Yeah, my instinct says something. I just didn't do it because whatever reason, I wanted to be polite. It it would eat me really bad than me just checking politely and saying, hey, is everything okay here? Then everyone agrees it's all good. Then, I'm sorry. Have a great day. Do what you got to do.
And I literally have to teach that.
Yeah. My wife, she fell, got a bruise on her face, right? We went to the hospital. When I stepped out, the doctor and the nurse asked her questions like, hey, is your husband?
Yes, exactly.
Is he being, you tell us now.
Same scenario.
And they were very direct questions.
Straight up.
Very direct.
Straight
right off the bat.
Like,
because
as soon as and they were so nice to me. Right there. They're like,
before you left the room.
Before I left, I would not have seen it coming.
By the way,
it's some gangster shit.
These are all trained techniques to how to do that.
But I did notice the nurse did look at me with suspicion. Right? She was just straight up like,
right off the bat,
this MFer. Let me find out. Kind of. So I did get that vibe, but I was more concerned about my wife. I was like, hey, is she gonna be okay? This and that. And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna go step out. I stepped out. They both stepped in, asked her all these questions.
But you had no idea that.
Not until I came back, and she started laughing. She's like, "Will, I could have got you arrested." I was like, "Well," I was like, "How? What happened?"
You see how fast you said that? I could have got you.
She goes
just like that.
She goes, but jokingly, she was like saying like, "Oh, they asked me this, that, and the third, see if you were abusive." I was like, "I saved your life." I was like, "It was the opposite."
They don't care. Because the first thing, there could be.
Yeah. Initially, I was defensive. I was like, "Yo, what the?"
Exactly.
Right?
So you see what happens? That's what you're gonna be doing.
And then I thought about it. The reflexively, I'm just like, how dare you accuse me? Like I'm not. And
you're feeling it now. Exactly what I'm trying to explain.
But then the next second, I was like, "No, that's great. Yeah. That's great because if I happen to be that type of person that would pick on someone smaller than me and then they're in a hospital, it's a great opportunity for them to get some help outside of that situation." So I love that.
There's a lot of that domestic issue going on even during the pandemic, and it was the sad part because sometimes even the perpetrator had to end up staying home because of the quarantine. But that happens, and even as we speak with the children and how things are happening, whether it's real or not real, a lot of people don't like that feeling of being accused. Because if I'm innocent.
But get over yourself. Yeah. It's not about you.
Well, it's
about saving lives, right? It's about saving children or saving women or saving people that just need that help.
Understanding that.
It's not about trying to, in my case, it wasn't about me, even though I felt like it was about me.
Moment,
but it's not about me. Get over it.
But for that moment, you felt that.
Of course.
The accusation.
Yeah.
That how dare you even try to.
I would never touch a woman.
Yeah.
Like, I would never touch someone that I love.
Just think of somebody that didn't have that calm logic and take it a little bit.
But wouldn't that prove their case even more if someone doesn't have that calmness about them? Wouldn't they go, whoa, if you're so violently reactive off of something like this, maybe something is wrong with you. That kind of just reinforces their assumption.
I've seen people get mad, but not to a point where, like an anger issue to people, but sometimes people you also have to remember where your level of your calmness and your logic.
Right. But here's the thing, if they came up to me like, hey, you don't belong, what are you doing? How come this and that? And right away started acting like...
And then that's also on them.
Like I'm guilty before proven.
Properly trained.
Right.
To control that situation.
Then I'm going to have a different reaction.
Certain ACS, they would take advantage of the domestic violence and use those techniques as a trigger.
Right.
To how to trigger the other person. You see, Your Honor, that's the person that I'm trying to tell you. And meanwhile, that individual does not have an angry bone, but they know how to hit your button,
how to rile them up,
get that out to say, Your Honor, there he is.
All right, let's shift gears here.
It's just heavy.
You mentioned something about
something about crime.
We have a new mayor in New York City. A lot of people would say anything would be improvement of the prior mayor. What are your thoughts and feelings?
As of tomorrow, 100 days. I will give this person, Mr. Adams, an F minus.
He failed. He totally failed.
So you think he's worse than de Blasio? Or
if you, I'm looking at the camera. If you beat the crap out of him, he would be de Blasio.
What do you mean? Like,
that's a street joke. If you beat the crap out of Adams, he would be de Blasio. Damn, is my joke that bad?
No. I don't think we can say that on camera, but
you're saying he's just as bad as him, but not as ugly?
He is de Blasio version 2.022.
They're besties. I heard that they were very cozy at this like government getaway. They were like buddy.
The one in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. One in Puerto Rico. So
and I think it was a Democratic convention.
Yes.
DNC. The reason, there's a lot of things that I didn't vote for him. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna tell you right now, I voted. It was not a good choice
for Curtis.
I was hoping that this would be for Curtis. Would be like a Giuliani redo.
We had Curtis on the podcast.
I met him the one time that when we were on Times Square when we were doing the Virgil. It was an I think for Christina, whatever it was. I actually shook his hand and said, I voted for you. I was hoping that he would be like the Giuliani 2.0. Because what happened was during the time when Giuliani got voted into the office, a lot of people don't understand how the hell he got into the office. But I also know, being, working up in Harlem and the Bronx for the last 13 years, all the seniors, the black and brown grandparents and the grandmothers, they said, you know what? It's not a matter of liking him. We needed somebody to clean the streets. I'm tired of seeing my kids in the neighborhood getting shot at. Nobody wants to, blame. It's like those guns did not come into my neighborhood for any reason. The people who are killing my kids, they look like me, and these are all seniors.
Well, look who's
and the
the 61-year-old grandma that got shot.
Right, and the situation
and where was that, in the Bronx?
No, hang on. I'm looking at the camera right now. You're 8 years as a borough president in Brooklyn. And these are all happening in your borough that you were borough president for 8 years. All right? So the thing is, if you've been the borough president in Brooklyn and your Brooklyn borough, unless you live in Newark, the other apartment that you allegedly claim that you're living in, why haven't you have a strategy that you've been looking at for 8 years before you plan to be a mayor?
Okay, let's pull this back a little bit. Let's talk about homelessness.
Yes.
I mean, you see people doing drugs, shooting up their arms. This was very reminiscent of the 90s.
But, and the 70s.
Yeah, and the 80s, right? So when I walk around 7th Avenue now, New York City, they cleaned it up.
So I was actually on my block. My block was like, most recently, yes, a lot of homeless people, but I was there a couple weeks ago, and there was no homeless. So I don't know if it was the policies that have filtered all the homeless from the street.
You see the police officers actually removing them from the encampment that they set up on the street. And the truth is, it's dangerous because you get people that are, and I understand these people need a place to live and shelter and whatnot and care, and they're afraid of going into some of these homeless shelters because they're saying that in itself is just like a glorified jail. They don't feel safe there. But at the same time, you can't be hanging on the sidewalk because people that are walking by, they don't feel safe either because of what's been happening with all these innocent people been attacked by quote unquote homeless people with mental illnesses.
Is he sweeping the homeless to another area because he's not fixing it? What you just said right there, the shelters are not safe, period. So you have to remember the source of the problem. The Department of Homeless Services, there is a department. So everybody knows, every single human social services and every single community-based organization, nonprofit organization that advocate for homeless, they all know the homeless shelters are not safe. So why don't the mayor go to the Department of Homeless Services and look at the department? Why aren't your shelters safe? Why are you not hiring proper security? Why are your protocols not being looked at? Why are you not reevaluating?
I understand all that, but the streets aren't safe right now. A lot of people don't feel safe being around the streets. And before we can fix that problem, I think you have to fix the problem of the crime going up year over year.
That's one layer of the situation.
And it appears that he is taking steps, and I'm trying to be unbiased here.
Okay.
Right? But it appears that he is trying to put in steps to reduce the crime rate in New York City so that people will feel safe coming back. People are going back into the office. People are coming back from other areas where they left for the pandemic. But a lot of people still haven't.
Shootings involved with illegal firearms. Majority of happened in Brooklyn, in his own backyard, where he was the borough president for the last 8 years. So we're also dealing with areas that within the local communities where all the crime rates are now shooting with teenagers with illegal firearms. And as an ex-police retired NYPD officer, he should have at least know how to handle certain situations with gangs and gun violence, and where innocent people right now are being, killed or harmed or injured during crossfire that has nothing to do with them.
But didn't he set up a meeting with President Biden where he's asking for support and help to limit and restrict the trafficking of guns into New York City?
That's looking at the outside of the Venn diagram. Right now, wouldn't you want to get rid of the existing guns and the illegal criminals with these guns in your city? How many captains can come up to you and talk to the police commissioner and say, this is my precinct, 68 Brooklyn as an example. I have X amount of this. I have officers on the street. I've seen gang activities. If you're going to be, working with crime and working with districts, the first thing wouldn't you want to do is go to the precinct in that area with the highest crime and ask the captain of that precinct, what are your men? What are your officers, not men, what are your officers are doing?
Wasn't there a big gang raid in the Bronx recently where they arrested a bunch of folks?
I thought the MS-13 was the Long Island thing that happened with all of that.
No, I think there was a big gang raid in the Bronx.
They were collecting
recently.
guns off of that.
Yeah. I mean, I just, the stuff that I'm seeing, I just think that, yes, it sucks that crime is up and that people are afraid to even go to work. Okay. I get that. I don't know. I don't think it's Mayor Adams' fault as of now. I mean, it's only been 3 months. I'm not saying it's his fault.
I'm also got to say is if
I think an F- is very harsh.
I mean, 3 months is not that long.
You're asking me for my, this is
of course.
The reason why I said that was the fact harsh. That when he came in and he came into Chinatown and he was in Brooklyn or all the other Chinatowns and he made all of these, you got to remember it was what he said to get the Chinese and the Asian votes, and then the next thing to find out, everything else. I didn't give him the F overall because of that. I also gave him the F because of what is happening to the jail in Chinatown. I gave him the F as what's happening.
What did he say about the mega jail? He said that he wasn't going to build it, that he was going to stop it.
And also not to mention the fact that on the anti-Asian hate thing.
So what are your thoughts on Mayor Adams?
Well, I'll give Mayor Adams a C-. I mean, he's just been in office for 100 days. He had on the platform, he wanted to, address anti-Asian hate. He wanted to address homelessness. He did implement some policies that looks like it's going towards remedying or finding a solution towards those things. So he still has time.
Why a C-? Why 2 grades down?
2 grades down because he's not. Well, he hasn't He hasn't.
Isn't that up? You're giving him up, right? Because I'm the down. I'm F.
Well, I'm starting from an A.
Okay. Damn.
I don't think
I'm looking at it from an Asian grading system.
Well, I don't think off the jump he could get. I don't think off the jump he can get an A. So he can't start off as an A because
why not? He could have a terrific 100 days. the honeymoon period. Everyone could fall in love.
Right, but he didn't.
Barack Obama, his first 3 months, everybody was giving him A's.
Yeah, but I guess we're coming from our lens, right? As part of the Asian community.
I gave Giuliani a B+.
Giuliani? First 100 days?
You have to remember, I didn't even like the guy. It was not mad. This is like, Godfather would say, yo, this is not personal. This is business. And he did.
It wasn't personal for his business.
Yeah, he did what he. I voted for him because I wanted a mayor that can get things done. I don't want a mayor that can just talk about getting things done. I would much prefer somebody with an overall, with a tool belt, and just get in there.
So you feel Mayor Adams is all talk, no action?
So far, for the 100 days?
Do you think he's facing a lot of bureaucracy internally because he can't get these things in place?
You're the mayor. Get it done. Do the Johnson. You ever heard of that? When they called Lyndon Baines Johnson, when he did the Johnson treatment, it was actually called the Johnson treatment.
The president, Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yes. Yeah. If you're going to be in the position of power and authority, if you have power over the police commissioner, he does have power over the police commissioner runs all the rank and file in every single precinct in all 4 boroughs.
So you don't like what she's doing?
She's got here. I can't. It's subjective when it comes to law and order. You can't just you just can't do that. But the bottom line is, he himself, as a retired police officer, as a captain, 20 years in the city, he knows the ins and outs of NYPD. He knows the ins and outs of 1PP. Yet, don't you think if he's going to plan to be a mayor, he's got
1PP as being one police
plaza. Don't you think he would have at least a strategy to say, oh, by the way, when you vote for me as a mayor, as an ex-police retired NYPD officer, here are my plans of action, not talks of bullshit.
So do you feel the people in the Asian community aren't really embracing him? Like they were grade him in a similar, fashion from an F to a C?
They were hoping that he would provide solutions for the Asian community and also to give, to keep his word. No, because the bottom line is his agenda is, pretty much like everything in the media. So far, everything is, the narrative in the city is like black and brown. And even the rainbow neighborhood was being neglected when there was certain, I think, candidates that he hired that have issues with the LGBTQ. And, being my color yellow, I'm part of that rainbow. And the thing is, we're being, overlooked. And we promised, I guess the Asian Chinese Democratic, Association, basically when we gave the endorsement to vote for him, we expect, some type of
follow through with the promises?
Something like that.
So you feel like it was just empty promises to obtain the Asian vote?
I'm going to use a phrase somebody else used. We got bamboozled.
Ooh. And
we got bamboozled.
That's how they feel about it?
Yes. I live in Chinatown, and a lot of what they can say, and a lot of the hoopla whenever they do the horse and pony show, when he comes in with that red minap and the red tongzhong or whatever. Yes, I'm for the Chinese.
Can you translate that for those that don't speak Canton?
I think it was like an Asian.
It was a Lunar New Year parade or celebration.
He came in and he just, wanted to be culturally competent and wearing that.
But he's a politician. Of course he's not gonna come in and try to look out of place.
Even politicians deliver. Sometimes words are just words, empty words, but at least in good faith, do something.
So how would a Mayor Adams to you, because it's only been 100 days, right? Make that shift from grading him to an F to a B minus?
Well, I like to see him coming out to that protest Monday about the mega jails doing a demolition. I also want him to, try to work with some of the advocacy to make sure that, anytime when somebody attacked on somebody in Brooklyn, immediately identified as an anti-Semite hate crime, when you have Asians clearly known that they were assaulted based on that, words were used, and they still have not considered those crimes against these Asians as a hate crime.
Why do you feel like attacks against other cultures they take more seriously?
Political influence over it, because it's amazing a lot of times when you hear the news, automatically immediately, oh, this person is like anti-Semitic. And it's like, no, the person, you know, I mean, if you just look at the person, the only, I don't know what, you know, at that particular time, that particular victim, whether it was a yarmulke or the way his hair dressed or whatever it was. But if somebody yells out, you know, you're fucking Chinko better China, and you get beat up, yeah, that's a hate crime. But they still legally, under the language, they did not classify these these acts of violence as an anti-Asian hate crime. So, you know, what is going on with that? That's the other thing, you know, right now with the city, the way how the language is being used on the attacks.
And you feel Mayor Adams can make a difference?
Well, he's the mayor of the city. If anything else, you know, he should at least let these, these criminals, you know, the law system, the judicial systems, like, listen, what's her name? Tissa James, the Attorney General, whatever it is,
the AG.
Of all of that. You know, you come out and you say these things, yet anytime when, you know, the arrests were made or the media, and they don't identify it, and sometimes the victims, you know, their race is not identified, yet it's amazing that the person didn't even know automatically it was an anti-Semite, but that's immediately identified.
Attack in Brooklyn, right? Yeah. Someone was just punched with no words exchanged, and they automatically charged them with a hate crime.
It was
whereas Asian, when they go like "F you know, C word and all this other stuff, and
the media just like basically the way it was written,
I don't know if that's a hate crime,
and it was not written.
You know? To your point, I do understand that frustration, because I'm there watching the news like, he just called them this, that, and the third.
Have somebody like Saifan, which is, you know, an Asian reporter, or Lucy Yang, or even somebody who, you know, another Chan from Channel 11.
Yeah. If
they have, and somehow they try to not have them report these. You know.
Wait, they're trying to have them not report?
I don't see it. A lot of times it's usually Saifan is probably the only one that really go out there and go after these. But most of the time,
was that Saifan Kim with Kim. Eyewitness News?
I think so. Yeah. Because I'm on the social media page when I see him a lot often. And he's really up there with that. But at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. You know, even that last incident.
Yeah, he does a great job with that stuff. He really does. His reporting is.
That's the other thing that, you know, with the city that bothers the hell out of me when it comes to these reporting, the language of what the media and the journalists would use, and how they interpret these incidents or these acts of violence against.
Do you think these media organizations get a lot of pressure from the law enforcement to kind of tone down the language?
I don't think the law enforcement has any say to that.
I don't think it's that. I think
it's more like the mayor's office, because the mayor's office handles the media. Because when you do press conferences, just like the White House, if Trump says, don't broadcast this, give me that one over there, the New York City has their own media press office. Mm-hmm. That's the mayor. That's City Hall. They control the media as well. So yes, if you're the mayor of New York City, you get to control the media. You control the police commissioner. You also have, you know, words with your New York City criminal justice system. So he's the mayor of New York City. So, you know, if he has to act in the power to fire a police commissioner who runs his police force, he has every responsibility to make sure that his PC, the police commissioner, to say, your district, your precinct right now has the highest crime against, blacks, or you're in the Bronx right now. All of these shootings with these students over here is, you know, whatever. Why are there so many shootings in your precinct?
There's a lot of people leaving New York City. A lot of people have left these blue states to go into red states because they're just tired of the politics here.
Because, you have to remember a lot of people are very, this is like the Chris Rock thing. There are things that I'm liberal. There are things that I'm conservative. At my age right now, law and order, I am extremely conservative when it comes to law and order. I don't want my daughter to get jacked up. I don't want my children to go to school and say, you fucking chink, I'm going to beat the shit out of you because, you're China virus or, whatever. Because right now, Ukrainians are feeling it. The Russians in New York City is feeling the Ukraine thing. I have friends who speaks Russian, but, they're Ukrainian. The business is dying because they blame it on American Russians.
Is that racist? Is that racist to do that?
No, it's just being ignorant.
To blame Russians, the American Russians that are in New York City? Or some of these, for example, the certain restaurants that are Russian owned.
Yeah. The Ukrainian restaurant, but they're Russian.
I feel like people are just turned off from that. And like people just look at the front cover, right? Because I would too. If I'm walking by and I see, it says Russian restaurant,
Russian tea room,
right? But yeah, their business has been down, and people has been prejudiced towards
Russian-owned businesses
going to that.
Yeah. So here's
patronizing that. Yeah. People have been prejudiced patronizing any of those type of businesses.
And basically, but
then they'll go to a Ukrainian restaurant, but is Russian owned.
Yeah,
is that that's your point?
Yeah, because I live right by Little Ukraine. Right there in East Village where you hung out. But the same thing is now how Chinese feel in New York City. We're not in China. So when you call the China virus and you won't come into my Chinatown, which is in Manhattan, we're not China. So now the Ukrainians and the Russians in New York is feeling what we were going through.
That type of prejudice, that type of ignorance.
It's the ignorance of the fact that, you're Russian.
But even that, you see what we just did there? Like we also play the game with China and say that it's their fault. There's a lot of people in China, the Chinese citizens there are like, hey man, like I didn't start this shit. Like I didn't do this. Like I just live here and you're making me guilty. Like I didn't, you know what I mean? Like I just work here in this fish market. I just work here in this Apple store and you guys hate me. You know what I mean? Like there's something strange about that. Right? I just don't, it's weird. It's weird. It goes up. Like we do it to ourselves.
That's human nature, I think.
It is.
Right? We just want to throw everybody in one bucket and say, fuck you, if you is or if you're not. We're just trying to make sense of it. And while doing that, we're not making any sense of it.
Not at all.
We're oversimplifying something that is a much complicated issue. But it's not, you can't just go and just say all Russians are bad or all Chinese people have some type of weird virus that originates. It's a strange way of thinking that's highly incorrect.
We had that with the SARS. The Hong Kong flu. And that's the sad part when it comes to the ignorance of individual. And when people now they know what it feels like to be in jail. When you were quarantined for over a year, you're stuck inside with people, even with your own family. And you get even angrier because you now know what people in prison feels like. You were locked up. When you were in quarantine, you were the only luxury we had was we didn't have, isolation or whatever. We were still able to walk. But for that one full year of quarantine when we're like literally locked up, America don't like to be locked. We're a race of freedom loving,
and people forget that there were certain types. Remember, they were called a state of emergency. They had the guards come in. They had curfews implemented.
We were in a militarized zone.
They were stripping people. People forget that they have a short memory, that they actually, they say, I could never be like that in these communist countries. But it happened here.
And guess what happened here for that one year?
There was curfews here. You couldn't go out unless you did this, that. Like there were just so many parameters that they put out.
Just think of what you were in the red state when you're a gun-loving dude like me living in some red state.
They didn't do that in the red states. So it was very normal lifestyle.
Because the rest, when I went to Poconos, and there's still people now, even like last year, masks, don't need no stinking.
Yeah, I have friends in the red state, and they were like, I was checking in their agent. I was like, yo, you okay? This was when COVID was first. I was very concerned. And they were like, Will, I don't know. The news is kind of hyping everything. We're pretty normal here.
Florida, they caught it. And I also have relatives that was like by far one of the worst place to be in.
Mm-hmm. But Joe, everyone caught it.
Initial stage.
Most people that I know has caught COVID, and I've been in New York the whole time.
Once again, that goes back to local medical, where they want to politicalize that virus, whether they want to sensationalize it, keyboard warriors from the red state or whatever, conspiracy theorists, whatever. And CDC was even having issues because the person that was in charge of the nation at the time was literally using his brute force. No, you will not say this or whatever. You can't say this. And it was difficult for us to watch at the time when you see, Dr. Fauci was being shut down. And
well, he was flip-flopping a lot. He was sending mixed messages. He said masks are useless.
I mean, there were a lot of but there's a lot of reasonings.
Unless you're wearing the N95, he said don't buy it.
It's because he didn't want to overbuy, the population to overbuy and cause a short supply for the hospitals. I mean, that's
okay. So let me
make sense during the doctor phase.
So that's not a good excuse. I'm sorry, that's not good enough because you took away your credibility. Now you did that.
It does.
How can I trust anything that now you tell me I need masks when you tell me I didn't?
And that's exactly what happened during that time.
So now you're sending mixed messages.
Where the
so
media
you get a group
basically discrediting practically every single department.
That's what I'm saying. So
what if he up in the beginning?
So what if he meant well?
Doesn't mean
right?
that's not true. Wearing a mask doesn't help, right?
Yeah, but then who's going to decipher that? Who's going to go, oh, he was really just doing some mental jiu-jitsu. He didn't want you to buy all the supply because we needed that for the hospitals, right?
Maybe he should have come out, be honest in the beginning,
and what people did is they took a reel of him.
And I got a funny feeling
contradicting
he was
himself.
Actually coerced not to say certain, because there was a lot of time you just kind of noticed that, that he was under duress, not because he couldn't speak. Because the other lady, there was another lady that was another doctor in the medical field. You can literally just look at their expressions on their face during these press conferences that he was, under duress to say, shut the fuck up. That's how I see it in his face. Because he wasn't like that as soon as the other guy came in the office.
And that's why, I think that's why a lot of people like Trump. I know that most of the, in certain cultures, they feel very strongly against them. But for all, it's like that yin and yang. Mm-hmm. But there's also that whole group that feels strongly for him.
You'd be surprised how many Chinese in Chinatown loves him.
All right, even I know a lot of Hispanic people that love him.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't tell you, like
the older generation.
Because it's the same principle as the same individuals.
But that's because they feel like he's a breath of fresh air. They feel like he's going to tell it how it is. He's a straight shooter. And there's a thing about that even myself, like when I meet someone and you immediately tell me who you are and I believe you, it's refreshing. It's like, all right, I don't have to deal with this like fakeness over the top, and you're just kind of like, liar. You know what I mean? But that's what people think. They feel like he is who he is. He doesn't play around. He can't be bought.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just telling you, this is from the perspective of the people that we know.
Yes.
That love Trump. They tell us why.
Yeah, I know.
But then I hear from the other side that people that come on the show and my friends also tell me the reasons why they don't like Trump. And I respect both sides. I mean, I'm still friends with, regardless of the politics. That doesn't make you a bad person.
Because there's a lot of qualities, in an individual where, like I said, we're complex. There's no, just absolutes of one side or the other. I mean, if you grow up knowing who he is as a New Yorker and all the, as a businessman, everything that failed, what he had done, what he was capable of, and all of that, that's one thing. But once again, if you're going to be the president of the United States, you're holding the title of the president of the United States and the commander-in-chief. It's not personal. You got a fucking job. Get it done. That's it. You're holding a position. You were elected to do a job. But if whoever the individual is, do not take advantage of your power authority to benefit, to your own gain. I don't want to be a president later on to find out, when I do retire after 4 years, 8 years, I want to make sure that this is in place for me and all of that. That's something else. But all I'm just saying is, as a candidate, we voted you in because we want you to be there to hold a position.
I do also want to add, a lot of people thought that when Joe Biden and Kamala Harris stepped into office, that Asian hate would stop. They were so, I guess, looking forward for a change of leadership that, and I said, why? And they said, because of what he said against Asians and calling it the China virus. I was like, all right, I totally understand that. But let's not get it twisted here. They already hated us before any mention of a China virus
as a blame for what things already happened for decades.
And I'll tell you what, when Joe Biden comes in, they're still going to hate us.
Yeah,
because they made up their mind.
The momentum is there. He didn't put a floodgate to say stop.
Like Joe's. No more. I got breaking news for you. Like, even though Kamala's, I forget what percentage.
She's Indian.
But
she's Jamaican, and a lot of Black Americans did not vote for her because the fact that when she was, I guess, the judicial, whatever the lawyer was when she was in the West Coast, locally, a lot of the genuine African Black Americans know what she did, what she's capable of doing.
What did they say?
Well, first of all, there was one particular incident that brought out when the Hawaiian senator, what's her name? She's a major in the Army. I forgot her name now. She's from Hawaii. When they were running the debate, there was a Black man out in California when she was, I don't know, whatever her title, she was like a lawyer or whatever, prosecutor. She suppressed, evidence that this man was innocent. He was about to be sent, I don't know, for death.
Why did she do that?
Political reasons or whatever it is.
Pressure, I guess.
I don't know if you remember that there was
because they wanted to win the case.
Yeah,
but that's her job, is to prosecute.
But you don't get somebody if you don't suppress it. It was a serious case where this man was going to do some damage time, and he was innocent.
So whatever happened to him?
Well, then when they found that out, she didn't like what happened. I think she lost on that because somebody found out that she suppressed it. And not only that, the fact that she was Jamaican, and this is a cultural thing between Jamaican Blacks versus American Blacks. There's always, and the fact that the father neglected her and her Indian mother took care of her. So she has a thing about that, even though she went to an all-Black college.
So you think that because of that, she feels more tapped into her Indian roots?
It's interesting you said that because she didn't do much for the Indian community.
Right, but the way you explain it,
the way that
I would presume
the explanation
that
is not there. It's exactly what happened and how the people that that her background have perceived her. This is not about me being how I feel. This is actually what's out there in the news of how the Indian, population feel about her, and how the fact that, because the fact her Jamaican father, that Jamaican father side basically just kind of like totally disconnected, but they still push her because Do
you think she feels some vigor against her own culture because of that?
The Jamaican side, maybe, not as consider herself because many of us can, if they want to politically, they'll play the race cards the way they need to get votes.
Some would say that she used her culture, the cards that she was dealt, to her advantage.
I would say yeah, because I do know there are certain prominent individuals that are Jamaican. They see it, and when she went to an all-Black, African-American Black college, that when she was there, she tried to keep that side of it. But a lot of times, even though she was raised by her Indian mother, she was never close or associated with the Indian community.
I'm okay with her embracing both sides of who she is. I'm Asian, I'm Chinese. Mm-hmm. And when I grew up, I didn't really feel Chinese, whatever that's supposed to mean. I didn't hang out with Chinese people. I didn't really do the typical things like that are quote unquote Chinese,
yeah.
right? Where people would assume that stereotype fits. I didn't do any of those things. I was quite opposite, which is why during, I guess, the first 15 years of my life, I didn't have that many Asian or Chinese friends because they looked at me as different. Not until I was later on, I grew up as a teenager, I made other Asian friends, but that's because I found others that were similar to me, that where they also feel like they didn't belong in, or has been outcast by your own community. So perhaps if someone feels that way, they'll just go out and kind of create their own lane.
I totally understand that too, because, you know, the way she grew up, you know, as far as like, even though she was raised by her Indian, they were educated. So she was predominantly with a black college. So she's more closer. I mean, if you're going to hang out with people that are closer to you,
right,
that you're comfortable with, which be a black college, and it'll be more like African American or Black American culture,
right,
versus her Jamaican father, which is Jamaican, and then her strict Indian mother. So, right, you know, when she was, her upbringing is practically Black America.
I say, hey, get in where you fit in.
And the thing is, and I'm also totally understand.
Doesn't matter how you look.
My upbringing was pretty much the same thing. I think, you know, I've talked about it off and on before, that when I first came, I'm an FOB, I'm a Jokak. But I've been despised because people look at me, you don't have an accent. So they think that I was born here. But a lot of my friends who are Joksing, which is American-born Chinese, they know that I am an FOB. So it's uncomfortable for them sometimes. And this is, you know, during the late 60s and the 70s, when there was a big rift in Chinatown between American-born Chinese versus the fresh off the boat overseas Chinese coming in. Whether you're from China or you're from Hong Kong, we were not the same, because there was, you know, there were a little bit of indifferences between the people that were in Manhattan Chinatown. So, and myself growing up, you know, my friends, I hang out with people that, that enjoys my company. And I grew up with my mentor, you know, Don. He's black, although my aunt's Chinese, but that was from his previous marriage. I had my health diet, you know, very healthy diet of soul music, jazz. I play basketball. I embrace more American black culture than anything else. And even now, where I work, where I'm more welcome, and people, you know, and that's always the same. I say the same thing to my daughter. You know, when you go to a sandbox, if the kids play with you, play with them.
That's what I love when I see that cultural diversity, but we're not even looking at color. It's like, I'm here, you look different from me, but we have the same interests and the energy matches and we just have a good time. And that's all it is. Like there's something about that to me just seems so mature. And then when we grow up somewhere along the lines, we become immature, where we look at someone and go, well, I can't get along with you because your eyes don't look like my eyes, or your skin or your hair don't look like mine. I think that's crazy.
Now, do you think that's because you kind of grew out of touch with
because the world fucks you up when you're born, and this. Well,
you separate. Like you grow up with these people, the people in the community that you're around.
I'll tell you what.
You move away. The joke is, what do you mean by these people? No, and that's exactly how they're going to hit you.
I'll tell you what. My daughter, we had an Argentinian friend who had a birthday party. We went there. There was Russian kids, Argentinian, Korean, Japanese, Indian.
United Nations.
It was a mix of everyone. See, you say United Nations. My kids just look at that like other kids, other friends to play with. They didn't care. They didn't care what race. They didn't ask. Like when we're adults, we ask these
as parents
stupid ass questions.
The difference.
Hey, what are you? What's your culture? What are you, huh? What do you do? What do you do? You know, these kids are just running around. Yo, that's so cool. Let's play. How do you play this game? How do you want to do this? Yeah, let's do this. And they were just having a blast. Somewhere along the lines, we forgot how to have fun. And we forgot how to connect with one another. We start asking fucking weird questions like it fucking really matters, because it doesn't. Hey, where are you from? Well, what do you do for a living? We start asking, start psychoanalyze to try to get what can you do for me? And the second thing is, let me try to understand you a little better by identifying where you culturally are from. Well, in America, I don't know if that's an accurate representation, because people can be Chinese, they can be Mexican, they can be Filipino, wherever. They can be German, but from Germany, right? They can be white, but they could be from another country, from a European country. They can be Asian, but 8 generations in. So does that really matter? You know, I watch all these kids play, and it was just beautiful watching them play. None of them cared, man. They had a great time. Kids,
let them have fun. And the part, how I feel about what you just, said, is sometimes I wonder if this political correctness and woke shit have fucked us up, because
to an extent
we're trying to like put things in and want to be culturally sensitive. Why can't you just be people sensitive and just like be nice? And it's very simple. It's like a typical religion. Just don't be an asshole. That's it. Yeah. That's how simple religion is. Don't be an asshole. I don't care. I mean, you got a pierogi? Shit, that's a wonton over there. You got a ravioli? Is that a tortellini? I call that an Italian. It's an Italian wonton. The shit is wrapped up in dough. Whatever you got in there, it's cool. It doesn't have to be whatever the fuck it is. And you hit that right there.
I love the cultural differences. Like, we had empanadas yesterday.
We call that a wugok. It's like, it's a different name, but it's the same shit. Because if you go to each other culture, believe it or not, sometimes when you have certain things called colonization, people bring certain things into your culture that we can either better it or change it or whatever you want to call it. It's like, yo, man, tempura is Portuguese. You don't like it? Fuck you. Or, a dantat is Portuguese. You don't like that? Fuck you. Or, whatever. Everything itself, we're all interconnected in one way or another. But if you have to, like, really social analyze what the fuck we're eating, then you're not enjoying your fucking food. Right. I'm sorry. And it's that simple. Stop looking at what's in, just enjoy the shit. And this is like that Bruce Lee moment. If you just kind of like look at all that shit, you miss all the fucking heavenly glory. Because you're now just like, yo, man, what's in this shit? No, this is not, drivers, dives, and wine or whatever to say how complex or whatever the fuck, umami or whatever it is. Does it taste good? Yeah, fucking eat it, And that's as simple as life is. And my daughter, I tell my daughter, very simple. If they play with you, play with them.
But then adults, they like to complicate things, right?
You tell adults to say, fuck off, leave them alone, let them play. Seriously. Sometimes you have to let these folks know, it's like, let them play. They have to learn how to play. And whenever they get into a difference, they get mad at each other for 30 seconds and they keep playing. Unlike assholes like us, we will hold grudges. And then, and that's when we fuck things up.
Yeah.
But it's very simple. Kids, when they play, they learn conflict resolution. They don't get mad very easy. They don't like it. They go back. Next thing you know, they're bad at it. They'll play again. We should learn from watching kids play.
Oh my gosh. I mean, just from like my siblings, right?
We should learn how to.
When we were kids, we would fight. And I mean, like, seriously fight, whether it's arguments, we'll go on for hours arguing.
And how quick you get over it.
And we'll get over it, like, by the time dinner hits, we act like it never happened. Or we'll even get physical, me and my brother.
And
right?
you can laugh at it. Because why the fuck we fight? It was like, that was stupid. Yeah, that was stupid. And you leave it at that.
We wouldn't even talk about it. The next we just ignore it and we just move on. We'll just move forward with our lives. We were very forward thinking, right? But now, as we gotten older, if we fight, we'll go through like months of not talking to each other. Like and it wouldn't even be that serious. It would be something crazy, but then we'll get all up in our feelings and not talk to each other for a while. It's crazy. Like, what happens to us as adults versus when we're kids? I just find it so intriguing because, I'm observing all these kids at the parties and I'm just like, yo, they got it right, man. Like, and then I start reflecting on my own childhood because you kind of relive your childhood in certain ways when you have a kid, right? I think that's part of the beauty of being a parent. And it's like you kind of get a second chance at that youth, but you're kind of from the outside looking in, but at least you get to see it. And you observe certain things that you didn't quite understand or had the maturity or the mental fortitude or the experience to look at it from a different light. But when you do, you're kind of going, what happened to us? Like, what happened to me? What happened to all of us here? Why are we like this?
We should let
Why
them
aren't
be in
we
the
like
UN.
that?
They could be in the UN negotiating and not get into wars, and the thing is just keep playing. And then that's the part, that's the beauty of the part that, you know, I myself, the moment I had my daughter, to be a parent and to basically to reassess my upbringing, to say, first of all, I'm not going to raise my daughter the way my mom raised me, because man, that's fucked up. And the next thing you know is like, you know what? There's a lot of things that I messed up myself as a human being, but these are the lessons that I'm going to at least reflect on to make sure that my daughter will see it. But, you know, and they're going to let them determine, you know, that's wrong. You know, that's, you know, I don't know you. And that's like her way of saying whatever it is. But also give your children the ability to think about things, not critically, but to a point where they understand it at their level, because they were already smart playing with their friends in the sandbox. They have an intellect that is so simple that we can't even with like doctors and scientists are trying to analyze that play scenario for years. And it's like, fuck, stop analyzing. Just let them have fun. And that's the actual solution of it. They're having fun. They're learning. They're engaging. They're doing conflict resolution. They're exploring. You know, yes, it's okay once in a while they eat a little dirt. It's okay once in a while that, you know, but now, you know, parents, no, don't touch that. Don't hang out with him. You know, man, he's not our kind. You know, it's like, and I see that. I mean, I felt that I experienced.
Or they shield them. They put their kids in I guess metaphorically speaking, a bubble.
A safe space. I hate that fucking term. You can't have safe space. Nothing is safe. And the thing is, you just have to be there and let them fall. But you have to be there to help to make sure that they get back up.
And you know what I noticed?
They all have to fall.
That they constantly observe you. And when you say something and then you say something to them, they know when it's hypocritical. They may not understand the word hypocrite, but they understand the feeling of a hypocrite. So when they see you say something, but you don't actually do it yourself, then you hear kids go, because I heard one of the other kids when responding to the parents, how come you don't do that? You're telling me to do that. I was like, ooh.
And the typical answer is, I'm your mother, that's why.
Because I said so.
Yes.
And what kind of parenting is that? It wasn't a proper conflict resolution. So you can see the kid was like, fuck, yo, this sucks. You know, they just didn't like it. And it was just this unresolved feeling in them that just didn't get the proper closure or explanation. And they actually lose respect for the parent, because you personally don't respect hypocrites. If someone tells you, hey, don't smoke, and you're out here smoking a cigarette right in front of them, you're like, and you're preaching about how bad it is for them, and you keep doing it, you're gonna be like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Everything you say may be right on the button on reasons why not to smoke, but if you're actually doing it, you can't really respect that.
And kids are brutally honest.
Yes.
And the thing is, as you mentioned before, there are times that the kids will observe. They will follow you not because of what you say. They will observe your actions. Because I remember when this is like, she was 8 years old. I was teaching her how to swim. You know, we're in the pool and all of that. And I would think that, you know, afterwards she didn't get it. But when later on, 30 minutes later, she found this little girl on the other side, little black girl that she was playing with at the bleaker pool. She did exactly what I told her, the strokes, the breathing, and all of that. And she explained all of that to this little girl. She just, you know, her new friend. Mm-hmm. And the next thing you know, they're like playing on the other side. And I just, and oh shit, you little. And she knew, but she just didn't want to say anything to me. Yeah. So the thing is, a lot of times, and I noticed that even when I, you know, do my parenting class with the fathers that I work with, it's not what you say to them, it's what you do that they observe. That is the most dangerous part, because a lot of time you could be doing things, talking all kinds of shit, and they'll be just sitting there and playing. Although they're playing,
they're looking at you.
Yeah. They're looking.
My son is always staring at me.
They're like a giant sponge, because if you like spill out toxic, they'll absorb that. If you spill out gravy, they'll absorb that.
Yep.
If you spill out, they'll absorb it. And then we have to be a lot smarter to explain to them, this is good, this is not good. Yes, daddy does this. It's a bad habit, but I don't want you to be, because of this. I'm already at this age. And you also have to and explain to them as simple as possible. Don't over-splaining. I hate it when I have overeducated relatives and they started to go in there and give you that Asian A mentality and bringing the kids to do all kinds of, fine, just let them know it's simple. Good, bad, Frankenstein, fire, bad, liquor, good, whatever it is. And they'll understand. And all you got to do is just let them know, and don't be the authority, because I'm the father, I say so. The more you do this, the more they will just be like Play-Doh and squeeze right between your fingers, and you're going to lose it. If you hold them too tight,
you ever heard this quote? With love, you have to treat it like you're holding sand. Because when you squeeze sand too hard,
it'll go right through your fingers.
And if you hold it too softly, it'll also go through your fingers. But if you hold it just right, the sand will stay in your palm.
That's the balance. That's the yin and yang shit that we have to deal with, because you got to have both. And a lot of times, you just can't teach your kids all good. Because if you teach them all good, they'll never be exposed to what bad is.
Is that balance? Is that something that is learned from experience? Because as a new parent, I'm constantly learning like things to do, things not to do, and sometimes it's a little overwhelming. Is that through experience that you learn? Okay, you had to find that balance and not squeeze too hard.
It's everything in life that we go through. It's not just being a parent; it's also being a good person. You also have the best thing to do is to let your children know that this is what a good person does.
I think instinctually kids know
what's good
between
and bad.
Right or wrong, right?
Because we're the one who put the racism in their head. We're the one who put the bigotry in their head, because pride, they already know that that's not, and they feel it when they're young. It's a very simple type of binary mentality. You hit them. They don't like the feeling, they'll cry.
They actually did a case study on this on kids that are like 1 or 2 years old. They took two Muppets, right? And one Muppet stole from the other Muppet, and then they were just like playing around, and they had these like little hand puppets do these things that were terrible. And the other kid gravitated and wanted to share the snack and take care of the other Muppet, and actually hit the other Muppet to keep it away from the other one. So they know
it's in there.
At a young
age. They know like right or wrong.
We are a computer with a clean hard drive. How we program ourselves, if I'm going to be a photographer, so I'm going to have photography apps. If I'm going to be an artist, I'm going to have these apps. And if I'm going to search porn, I'm going to have porn apps. If I'm going to shop a lot, these kids are processors and storage memories. We gave them tools. We are also giving them how to navigate to get these things. If your kid is already ingrained with certain artistic abilities, certain whatever it is, promote it, push it, advocate for it. But you also notice that maybe whatever your parents, sometimes we have an alcoholic or whatever it is that you don't want that to happen. Or by the way, if you currently, your family is in a situation that they're exposing to, because that, the audio and your visual cortex, they're absorbing everything. The first 8 years of their life, that first 8 years, and I always tell people that because somebody's told me the same thing. The foundation that you lay for your child, the first 8 years is the most critical part, because that is the foundation that will lead into it. Teach them puzzles. Let them learn how to play chess. Basic thing. It doesn't have to be super duper academic, whatever it is. Teach them origami. Origami's cool because all our boxes and everything else, the folding part, the engineering, the dexterity, the very most basic, simple things. Take them to shopping. Give them $5. Okay, if you can figure out what to get, the change is yours. That is like
financial literacy.
Oh, I've done
right
yeah.
there.
We've done all those things with our kids.
And if you're doing it the first 8 years and do it right, financial literacy. Because man, I got friends who are like, I got a PhD. How much do you own? $90,000. And I don't care how smart you are. If you can't pay your bills, you're fucked up. There are other things that make you, what's Ronnie Chen says, man, it's like, you can be street dumb and book dumb at the same time. It has nothing to do with that.
He said that?
That was part of his comedy. He goes, "Oh man, it's just because you didn't go to just because you didn't go to school, it does not make you automatically street smart."
There's some truth in that humor, man.
You could be book dumb and street dumb possibilities and shit like that. Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of people, you can learn street experience, but sometimes your life depends on it. And no matter how much you read, if you don't apply to what you read, then all the books that you have absorbed doesn't mean a damn thing if you don't apply to it. Mm-hmm. And these are your children, and whatever they want to do, support them.
Lucky Boys Podcast.